and welcome to Shades of Blue Podcast. I am CrunkChocolate, and I am here with Whole Lotta Wolves Podcast. This is part of Represent, our summer of content season. We out here, we doing our thing, trying to mix and mingle with the top 10. I am here with Whole Lotta Wolves. I just did a whole terrible thing that I cut out, and you guys won't get to see it unless you follow our podcast Twitter page, and then I will shamelessly plug that because, content maybe. I'm here with Joshua Buckley and Paul LePage, a Whole Lotta Wolves.
Good,
How are
thank
you
you.
gentlemen doing?
Yeah, doing great. Thanks for having us on.
And what I also want to say is you guys so far, of all the other people that I've recorded with, on time. First people. I mean, as no real. I mean, everyone has like lives or whatever, and I'm not trying to shade anyone else, but that is superlative towards you guys.
Nice.
Like for sure. I was just like sitting here waiting, about to sip my coffee, and Joshua pops up, and I'm like, oh, all right, hi. And so I appreciate you guys for this. Is 10 a.m. in the middle
The working
of
day. Yeah.
Central Time.
Yes. Might need to edit that out. So
I appreciate you guys. Yes. Give us credit for doing this. That's why I'm saying.
You know what? Remote work is the best. I love the way that the offices have changed, so we can do so much working from home. So this can be a lunch break, right? Oh, it's just a lunch break.
Yeah.
It's a lunch meeting.
I appreciate you guys. I appreciate it. How did you guys get together? How did Whole Lotta Wolves become?
So I'll take that one.
Mm-hmm.
I started putting together, with the help of some other expats in Houston, some watch parties. So we'd meet up on a regular basis, and we started to grow our numbers pretty well. Obviously, good oil and gas presence in Houston, so that brings a lot of folk over from the UK. So we were fortunate to have a good base of expats start watching, and then over time, and certainly our success in the EPL started to bring some new fans in, and we signed Raul Jimenez. That had some Mexican contingent come along who followed him from the national team. So we grew and we enjoyed success after promotion back into the league. So it was towards the end of our second season back in the Prem that Josh had been coming pretty much to watch the game since the start of that season. And it was an idea that I had that there's a ton of Wolves podcasts out there. There's some phenomenal podcasts, but they're all UK based. So they watch it slightly from a different slant. Obviously, they might be going to the games and have a different experience from us, who only have that image of the game from the screen. So I always thought there was a kind of gap in the market to do something stateside. I spoke to Josh about it. He's got a good background that was suited to it, and we like that combo of having my heritage as a legacy fan from back in the UK and growing up there, and Josh's is more of a recent fan that's jump on the bandwagon, because we've never had a...
I have no problem with that.
Yeah, we never had a bandwagon to jump on before, so we'll take as many people as possible.
It's true. I haven't had to face living through the dark days of League One like Paul and a lot of the Wolverhampton diehard fans have, because I just picked him up a few years ago. You know, I'd always been looking for a Premier League team, and I'm a typical American, and I'm like, oh, they have a cool logo, they have a cool jersey. And I was like, I bet there's like a watch party group, and that's where I found Paul with Houston Wolves. And the first game I went to was against Chelsea, and Wolves lost 5-2, and I was like, these guys aren't ever going to want me to come back. But they did. And then when Paul approached me about the podcast, I was all about it. He's had it really so well thought out and planned, even heading into that first episode. It was a lot of fun.
That's great. How long have you guys been podcasting?
We just finished our second season. Yeah, second season. So
nice.
It's grown steadily over that time. We've been fortunate to bring a producer in for the second half of our the season that's just wrapped. So it's those little elements that make a better episode each week. So
Growth.
yeah, it's been nice steady growth and good to be a part of.
Great, great. So the way the podcast will go for the listeners listening, I have some questions for them. Then we will cover the previous season, talk about off season and expectations for the next season. First question to you. I'll ask Joshua first. Best thing about being a fan of Wolverhampton?
Best thing about being a Wolves fan, huh? I'm gonna have to say that it's a bunch of good guys on the team. They're very easy to root for, especially when you see all the stuff they're doing off the pitch, like Connor Cody and stuff. And it's kind of nice. We don't have to worry about any real a-holes on our team. Like they're all fun guys. They play with a lot of passion, and I think the big thing is we know we're entering some of these games, especially top 6 games, talent wise as underdogs, and we've seen Wolves just really keep playing, and they don't give up even after falling down in games. A great example we'll talk about is falling down 2-0 to Man City and coming back and win. And that's what makes it great. And because there's not as many fans in the US, it's a very fun, kind of tight-knit group of Wolves fans, especially online. And it's cool. This podcast has allowed us to kind of uh become a part of the community, and it's been just a lot of fun.
I'll probably take that, stretch it back a little further. That benefit of being a Wolves fan and following the club is that we're a traditional team, that we've been around since the formation of the Football League back in 1886 or whatever it was. So we've always had that long history and we've always had those high spots to talk about. So you blend in that tradition, you blend in that history. Wolverhampton in the UK is a tremendously down to earth working class city now, or big town. Really, the people there salt the earth, they work hard during the week and they go and watch the team on the weekends. So you've got that real heritage, and I think that comes across in the fan base, that we friendly, that we're approachable, that if you meet another Wolves fan, they instinctively become your friend. That's a benefit for me of being a fan of the club and being able to say to people that we've got this great heritage and you're not just jumping on the bandwagon. This is going back years. And if you ever go to Wolverhampton, go to the city, you're going to be warmly welcomed and you're going to get a hug and a pint bought for you, and you're going to be welcomed into the pack as much as anyone. So that's what really makes me proud, that I can talk about Wolves in such positive ways when it comes to the fans.
Sorry, I had my cat jump in as a guest here. She's every time I'm on
No,
video,
that's
she leaves me alone until she sees
always
I'm
welcome.
on video chat.
Always
Attention whore.
welcome. But you were spot on about fans and how welcoming they appear to be. I mean, I've never met one person, but like you guys have been delightful, and just like the matches that I do watch, especially if there's City's not playing and there are matches on. If Wolverhampton's playing, I will watch you guys because your playing style, industrious. Like the matches are always fun. It can be 0-0, but it's going to be an entertaining match. There's going to be grinding. There's going to be chances missed. You guys play a very smart football style, and when City always play you guys, we never know what's going to happen. Like we will get to. What is the color? Is it orange? Is it yellow? Is it teal? Like what?
So
What?
that's somewhat of a bone of contention, that often you get an announced team saying, "Oh well, they're playing in their orange jerseys today," and actually officially it's called Old Gold. Yeah, Wolves
Oh,
fans have a
gold.
slight chip on the shoulder if you hear anyone call it an orange jersey, and it's distinctively Old Gold. And even if you go into an argument with a Wolves fan about the colour of the jersey, you can literally pull out a Pantone number of Old Gold and they would show it to you and say, "Look, it's official. It's got a real colour to it." So
It's a
Yeah,
real color. You just have to buy like the 500 count crayon, and old
that's
gold is in
right.
there.
Yeah,
It's there. It's a real color. No, that's brilliant, and that's even why I asked, because I was about to say it's let me just ask, old gold, because like City we're like
yeah,
sky blue, and our whole thing is with our new shirts this season. There's a stripe of like reddish purple, and it's
yeah,
claret, and it's this color, but it some of our newer fans, City basically had to make a post to be like, hey, it's literally a nod to Colin Bell, our greatest Manchester City player of all time. He may be before your time, but relax. And then half of them were like, okay, relax. And then the other half were still like, he's old. We don't know who he is. It's kind of very real. It's insane. So it's really nice to hear that you're like history. We're history, and because sometimes City fans appear to be like trying to bucket because it's not necessarily a winning past, but it's just like you had to be there to get here, so you got to enjoy all of it.
It's funny you mentioned history. It even gets down to the Twitter account for Wolves Knows History. They're always following 1,877 people at all times, um, because of the year the club was founded. In fact, it whenever they drop somebody, that becomes like huge news as far as up. It's signing incoming. Who they gonna follow? So it's pretty funny that way too. The club, that is one thing they're very good at recognizing the history.
Next question is, what is a worst memory about Man City against your team? I just had to like get us. We're gonna talk about Wolves a lot, so like make us feel happy a little bit. That's all I ask.
Well, this season sucked. I think, I felt good after we only lost 1-0 to you guys in the first leg, especially because it was a BS call. It really should have been a 0-0 draw. But, I guess a handball armpits count as hands now. So I went into that Man City game. I thought for sure we were going to get at least a point on this second leg. And, they scored quick and it was like, uh-oh. And then we scored and tied it up. It was like, here we go. And then as far as non-Wolves players, Kevin De Bruyne's one of my top 3 players to watch. So you just watch him, and it's tough to just say, oh yeah, no, they got luckier. I mean, that was just pure class, and it was rough to watch. Paul and I were sitting there. It was kind of quiet for us at the pub that day.
I'm going to take you back to it's actually a season of bad memories, really. I'm going to take you back to the 2001 2002 season of the Championship, and that's when Man City were in the second tier. We were in the second tier. And for most of that season, it looked like we were both going to run away with promotion. Man City quickly got to the top and were showing that they were champions. I think it was under Kevin Keegan was coach. They had the likes of Sean Wright Phillips, who at the time having him in the Championship was something else. So the issue for me, it's kind of indirect why Man City is a bad memory, is that pretty much we'd had second place locked up. So Manchester City were going to go up as champions. We were within like 6 games to go, something like 9 points ahead of the nearest rival in third. That nearest rival happened to be our local rivals, West Brom. And it's called our choke season because we're into the run in, so final few games, and one of our solid players got himself stupidly sent off at home against Grimsby Town, of all teams. And it was a fixture that everyone thought we would win easily and be a cakewalk, another step on the way to promotion. He got sent off stupidly, so he was out for 3 games. And whatever the reason was, that just created such a downfall in our form that we couldn't put a win together. We just needed 1 or 2 wins to keep West Brom at bay and really kind of cling on to that second place and get promotion that way. So during that run in, it was a home game against Man City. Obviously, they pretty much had the league wrapped up by that point, and we couldn't lay a glove on them. and they beat us 2-0 at home. And that was another kind of nail in the coffin that this choke was actually going to happen. And that turned out to be true. And we missed out on that second place on the last game of the season to our nearest rivals. And to make it even worse, we lost in the playoffs as well. So it was just a dreadful season. So Manchester City have definitely got a contributing factor in terms of all of that.
Wow, I'm sorry I
Yeah.
asked.
Paul's got, man, he
Didn't mean to bring
remembers
up a bad
specific
memory.
games from all through growing up. It's actually really impressive. And unfortunately, a lot of those are bad memories, it seems like, Paul.
Yeah, pretty much.
Funny side note from your story, Paul. That year is the year I first found out of Manchester City, and I tell the story all the time. I was playing a video game with a friend, FIFA, and I was just like fiddling through, looking at all the leagues and all the teams, and I got to League One and saw a team in blue and this like cool badge and this one, and I was like, who is this people? There's another team in Manchester. Why have I only heard of United? And I've always just like hated them in the first place. That was like that was like the little like seed that was planted in me to become a like full fledged City fan.
Nice.
And so
It really is cool
that's
how,
weird.
especially for Americans, FIFA plays a big role in who we decide to support. I know that was a big reason for me is finding him on FIFA, and then when Wolves signed Adama Traore, who's just a speed god on FIFA, that played a
Yeah.
really big role. And you talk to a lot of guys who say, "Oh yeah, I saw Wolves on Twitter, and it seemed like a fun team to play as," or not on Twitter, on FIFA. I think that's always really cool to hear from other teams as well, how their fans came across via FIFA.
I really love uh, building up a team, like starting low and then getting like a solid team and then having them come up and then just like kicking everyone's in the top six's ass and just being like, yeah, like that's how I am. I'm just a fool, I guess. Next question. What is a myth or a story about your team that you want to dispel?
That's got Paul written all
Let's start
over
with
it.
Paul.
I think
Yeah.
I'll take this one first in that it often comes across that we are Portuguese FC and that it's all part of
Ah,
the
you stole it from me, Paul.
it's all part of the George Mendes carousel, and we're this little puppet that's on strings, and if Mendes says jump, then we've got to shuffle the cards and move players around, and it's a revolving door. So whilst obviously heavily involved, given the links between our ownership and him, I do think it often gets lost the investment and the infrastructure in place in terms of our academy. And I think you're going to see probably in the next 2 or 3 years a sprinkling of one or two players that will come through and be of a starting 11 caliber. So most notably recently we've had Max Kilman come in and really nail down a spot in the centre of defence. And his form at one point this past season was put him in contention of getting a call up for England. I think it's having that outlook that, okay, we have got this infrastructure in place that's predominantly Portuguese focused, or we've got a hotbed of potential players coming through from that route, but don't let that shy away from the opportunity to uncover some gems that are coming through the ranks from some of the younger players.
I'd say, I mean, that was a good one. Paul took mine, so I got to come up with something else quick. I'd say the fact that we're still considered a small club by a lot of fans. I think they just were used to Wolves kind of, dropping down and hopping back up by relegation. And I don't feel like they're that type of club anymore. I think even though us fans sometimes get a little bothered by the fact they don't spend more in the transfer window, I still think they spend enough to make it so we're not going to be a club that's fighting to avoid being relegated all the time. Like, they built a good enough base, and I don't think they're going to go back to those days where, every year was kind of a struggle to stay up in the Premier League. I think we're here to say, I would kind of compare us to like a West Ham or an Everton. Maybe occasionally 1 or 2 seasons there's a couple of dicey moments, but I think for the most part we're here in the Premier League to stay. And you know what? Some of those fans that wish we weren't are just going to have to suck it.
And in Manchester, we have a phrase that is "suck it" and it's "do one." Bringing a little Manchester twang into him. What I will say, me just not knowing other teams' history the best, when you said, what did you say, 1891?
So the club was founded in 1877, and it was what?
Yeah, like that's
Yeah.
insane. Insane. I know there's plenty of history in football, and I know City, they have a very storied history. They go back a very long time also, but it's just like hearing how many teams that are like that, because in like American football, it's like 1950s and 1960s, relatively new. So like the history, like great, 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 great grandchildren, the history in that is like very cool to me as just like a silly American. Next question is elevator pitch to someone new trying to get into the Premier League. Elevator pitch of why should they join your Wolf family, your Wolf pack. Sorry, I don't know how
I
I
think
missed
I'll
that.
I'll
That was
take
right
this one
there.
first. The big thing for me is I try and tell people, especially Americans, do you really want to be rooting for a big six? I mean, yeah, it's fun. They're going to win all the time. But if you're looking for a club that it's going to be really satisfying when they do break into that top six and are competing for Champions League, that's why you should go for one of the other clubs. And I feel like Wolves are one of those just because we are scrappy. The team's not going to give up. They just don't have that in their character where they're going to roll over. Again, a bunch of great guys to root for. Young talent. There's a lot of reasons to root for Wolves, and also we have the coolest logo in sports and in music now, apparently.
I actually say Wolves a lot when people are like, "Who has the coolest logo?" And I'm like, "Wolves." I mean, and a lot of some of them, it's like almost like a faux Batman. It's just like kind of like in the sky type of vibes. It is a very nice logo. Sorry to interrupt you, Paul,
No,
with
it's
that.
not at all. Mine would totally extend on to Josh's point in that we want to be a club that's seen as a contender. We're not going to turn up and win the Premier League in 3 or 4 years, probably maybe even never. But if we continue on the trajectory that we are, we're going to be there or thereabouts, and we're going to win a cup. And I've never seen us win a cup, even a League Cup or a FA Cup that's been somewhat devalued over recent years. That would be phenomenal for me to see a Wolves player lift one of those trophies. Playing Europa League competition for me was unbelievable. I was watching the Wolves against European sides that I'd watched growing up playing the big boys. Having that kind of feeling of a club that it's not going to be a big six team, it's not going to be a Galacticos, but we're gonna contend, we're gonna be there or thereabouts. We might put a couple of runs together if we can get back into Europe again. That was phenomenal. So I would echo Josh's points that if you don't want to jump on a uh, big six bandwagon, then we're the next best thing.
Run with your point about playing European clubs that you remember growing up watching. I remember in 2011 that that was like City's first Champions League. They weren't. It wasn't good. It didn't go well for us. Well, it went okay, but it just was like you said, playing these teams that you never would have thought your team would be playing against, and they're doing good in some games, and look completely lost in some matches. But that's the first step. So now you're just like, no, we're getting there. We're on the way, and I I like Wolves a lot more. Leicester's slipping away. Their players are getting older and they need to like figure something out. They're gritty, kind of like your guys's. I had no idea West Brom is your guys' rival. There we go. Let's do that. They're your rival like that. It's a pretty solid one to have because you guys both kind of like go up and down, but for the most part, I feel like you guys are the better score of the two.
Definitely. Yeah.
Am I wrong in saying that? Yeah, cool. Naturally, you're not going to say no.
Paul will never give
I don't
West
even know why
Brom
I set
credit
you up for
for
that.
anything.
Yeah, for a
And
long
as
time
he
they were.
shouldn't.
But
Yeah,
now, hopefully the balance has shifted.
I think so. Next question is favorite player of all time on the Wolves.
I'll go
Paul,
historical first,
yeah.
and I will say it was our all-time leading goal scorer, Mr. Steve Bull, who went on even played. He really helped drag the club up from the fourth tier back up to the second tier. He had 40 and 50 goal seasons, which even in those leagues are pretty much unheard of. And it was even the case that when he was a second division footballer, his goal scoring was that phenomenal. It got him a call up to the England team, and he actually went on and scored on his debut and got to go to the Italia 90 World Cup. So, as a player that wasn't playing top flight football, that was a real momentous moment to have someone of that stature. So, he's synonymous with helping the club get back to being in and around of potentially doing something. And the big thing about Bully was it was tremendous loyalty. So he had options to move during those times, to go to bigger teams to get more money, and he always stuck around. So that's pretty much unheard of nowadays. So that just goes into really highlighting what a great he was for the club.
And for me, since I haven't been a fan for nearly as long as Paul, Adama Traore was really the player that attracted me to Wolves first. Just his speed and power. And I'm known on the podcast, I'm an Adama stan. I still hope, that now that he's back from his loan at Barcelona, that Wolves keep him and hopefully sign him long term. I just think he's such a unique player. Yeah, he's not great in the final third. But as I've told people, if he was as good in the final third as a lot of Wolves fans think he should be, he'd be a top 20 player in the world. I mean, you look at what he's able to do, just dribbling wise, his strength. Man City's seen that firsthand. Uh, so yeah, he's by far been my favorite, and that's until they sign whoever they're going to as far as the U.S. men's national team, which is it's coming soon, I hope.
Paul, how do you feel about Adama Traore?
I would welcome him with open arms if he comes back in and signs a new contract, because he has got that X factor, and we've seen it's just consistency, and we saw it plenty of times that if he's in the right combination of attackers alongside him, if he's in the right formation of a team that's set up to play to his strengths, he's had some phenomenal purple patches for us, but it's just making sure that you're able to do that consistently over the course of a season and not just 4 or 5 games and then drift out of it. But Josh is right, if he was able to do that, we wouldn't have been able to keep him. So I think it's going to be an interesting summer in terms of what happens with him and where eventually he goes, if he does in fact go.
Yeah, he'd be an $80 million
Well,
player if he had an end game.
I mean, honestly, maybe more just because how weird. Well, actually, not more because everyone's broke. But
Oh, don't. You're Man City. You're not broke. Don't even give me that. Oh, everybody's
no.
broke.
That's I didn't mean it like that. I see, and that's the problem. No, I just mean seriously everybody. Like no one can afford, and I'm even just speaking as an aspect as like Barca right now. they're struggling. Like there would be no way they'd be able to buy Adama Traore, and just like COVID hurt everyone on purpose. So like when I use the term broke, I mean it. It can mean many things, and I would never use it pointedly at like Wolves and stuff like that. I will always use it pointedly at Liverpool and Chelsea and Arsenal and Tottenham specifically because they are complaining about the price for like our players. So it's like stuff like that. But like I would never like you guys. You guys aren't broke like that. Like you guys are spending. You guys are trying to figure some things out. Like yeah, I'm. It sounds like I'm backpedaling, but I do want to explain myself for like other people that I record with in the future because I have some hesitancy from some other podcasts in the top 10, and I completely get it. I'm coming in being like, "Hi, let's all talk about football." Like I seem like an asshole, but no, I just like It's the summer. Like there's a truce during the summer. I did an episode with Chop Soccer Pod. They just talk about football in general. And I was wearing a Corinthians football shirt during football off season, like American football off season. I'm a Packers fan, but I have a legit Marshall Faulk like old football shirt from the Greatest Show on Turf, and I rock that shit during the summer. Like during the off season, it's all love. I have no hate towards anyone except for like the teams that I have specifically said. Those teams, it's all hate always. If I see someone ever in anything Wolves, I will cheer you guys on. Like
And the
it's
Wolves
all
owners
love,
do try and
always
act
and
like they're
forever.
broke sometimes. They will let a player walk just
Well, you have
over
to
a million
sometimes, yeah.
pounds. It is what it is.
When they were gonna send Adama to Barca, that seemed odd because you guys were fighting for potentially top six, top eight. I mean, there's a third European competition now, and then you send one of your most dynamic players away, and Barca knew they weren't gonna buy him, so it just seemed very odd.
Yeah, it was a
Yeah, there are a lot of
calculated
factors in
risk.
that.
Yeah, a calculated risk that it could have been the best thing to happen in terms of that he didn't want to be here. And if he'd have put himself in the shop window and triggered a 20 to 35 million transfer or whatever it could be going into his last year of his contract, then that would have been a masterstroke. But unfortunately, he went there and started off brightly, and then nothing much really happened. So now, in hindsight, that looks like a bad move.
So it was almost like, oh, you want to go? Okay, bye. Go make some money for us. And then he comes back all just like wet and sad. And it's just like, you didn't have fun, did you? And he's like, no, you want to stay,
Yeah,
don't you? Yes, I do. All right, come
Well,
back.
what's really interesting too is that was his boyhood club, and he took a salary decrease to go there on his loan. I mean, he was practically playing for free, and so yeah, that's where Paul kind of talks about calculated risk. And I think Barca thought we'd be so desperate for stuff that they'd still get to keep him in exchange for some of their trash, which we've told them no. And they're still trying to do that even to get Ruben Neves. Oh, here, have three of our no, give us money. And Nico Gonzalez.
Yeah, Ruben Neves is class. Yeah, no, he's good. He's a great player. There was like moments where City were shouted at looking at him, and I was like, I wouldn't be mad at that. That was a while ago, but I was like, I wouldn't be mad at that. He's a solid player. Let's talk about the previous season. Going into it, like obviously this is hindsight, but going into this season, the beginning of last season, how were you feeling about it overall?
I always go into every season having a long and checkered past of being a Wolves fan, of being extremely nervous. And I'm never content till we see that 40-point mark hit. And I don't think I will ever lose that feeling. It's just ingrained. But particularly going into the season, for me, it was a worry just because we had such stability over the past 3 years under Nuno as coach. His firing, what transpired out to be, was kind of unexpected in a way, but very cutthroat by the ownership, only for them to appoint a relatively untried coach. He'd done well in a season in Portugal, but what was Large's potential to come to England and do well, no one knew. No one knew his caliber or anything like that. So expectations for me going into the season that it could really be a good thing, but then it could quickly turn sour if this guy doesn't live up to his predecessor. It could put us in potentially in a relegation battle. And thankfully, that started to really be dispelled within the first few games. Even though we weren't winning, it looked like he'd brought something a little different. He was using the same players, but there was a different ethos and a different spirit about the team, playing in a slightly different way that really started to show. So thankfully, that nervousness to begin with uh, really ebbed away, and we enjoyed some really good successes kind of midway through, really up until the run-in.
Yeah, I came in, being a newer Wolves fan, I'm not as battle scarred as Paul is. I thought 8 to 12 was pretty fair. I thought worst case scenario would be 12th. I just look at it talent wise. I mean, we have the talent. Wolves have the talent. They're not going to be in that relegation battle. I mean, the season before there were some dicey moments, but it's because our best player nearly died on the field after breaking his skull. And so he was coming back, and even though he didn't have as good a season this year, I was still confident that their talent would be enough to carry them to, mid-table, and turned out to be the case.
How do you feel about your manager, Bruno Lage? How do you say his name?
hmm
Bruno Lage? Is that it? Okay. How do you feel about him?
I like Bruno. I think this summer is very important because he really wasn't backed either of the last two transfer windows. He basically, his only guys that he got were Jose Sa, who was awesome, Wang Hee Chan, and then over the January transfer window, he got Chiquinho. But other than that, he's playing with Nuno's players, which were built for a back five counter-attacking squad. And isn't what he wants to play. We talk on the podcast all the time. We've always heard his mythical 4-4-2 that he had at Benfica. And there's a lot of Wolves fans that want that back four just to see what we can do on offense. But it's going to depend on what we get in the transfer window. Um, we need to make sure that we have somebody to pair up next to Max Kilman to have that successful back four. Probably need to find that second pure scorer to go along with Jimenez. I've said if I feel like Lodge has proved himself now, and if this summer goes by and the owners don't back him again, I could very much see him walking away and getting a job at a team like Everton or somebody like that, where there are some more resources and he can really build the squad that he would like to build.
I'm probably 60-40 in favour, and I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt that we are going to have this summer of transition. There probably are going to be moving parts in terms of personnel going out that's probably going to fund the players coming in. And I think it really comes down to whether those players that are brought in fit a profile that he can work with and tweak the team even further to get the best out of them and to get the best out of the players that remain. So it's still somewhat um, not cut and dried in terms of really whether he has got the credentials to kick on and take us to that next level, because there are moments at this season where he was questioned in terms of how the team was set up or his ability to really think on his feet and make substitutions that could impact the game. And again, that comes down often to squad depth and the players that he's got at his disposal. Could he necessarily turn to the bench and think, oh, I've got this guy on there who's going to come in and do this for me, which is how we're going to get a point back in this game, or how we're going to turn around this defeat and into a victory. I think we only had something like 4 points last season that we're taken back from losing positions. So it's those elements that there's some questions over his head in terms of, is he the guy to kick on and take us forward? Because the ownership certainly give the impression that they want to see that type of progress. So will he be given all the opportunities to do that? And is he ultimately the guy who can?
A couple things before I get into the next question. Yeah, next question. Chiquinho is a stud. That dude, only seen him a few times, but he just like pops off the screen. And so good on him for being able to see that and I guess push the ownership group to like buy him. And so you also mentioned that there's a potential 4-4-2 that he could be running. Is the ownership group like meddling? Are they like very hands on or anything like that? Or you just don't think he's going to do it?
It comes down to finances. We've been told now for the last couple of years that we're a sell to buy club. That's why Ruben Neves'
Mm.
sale is going to be so important. Is how do we take those resources and build along? But there's other guys who they could look at to sell. Chiquinho's great. I'm curious if we stay a back five. I mean, there's a possibility they may keep him at right wing back, which Lodge had mentioned, and we talked about it in the podcast because nobody else really kind of caught it. It was just like a one sentence in a press conference, and then he came out and he was playing like kind of a hybrid wing back type deal. Um, if they do a 4-4-2, I could see him more as like a right midfielder that plays up a little bit further. Um, and honestly, those are the type of players that ownership likes to get, is those really cheap younger guys that can hopefully develop. Chiquinho's one. Pedro Neto was another one that they didn't pay very much for, and he's developed well. If they could, I feel like if ownership could field a team of 23 and under guys that were each costing less than £5 million, they'd do it in a heartbeat, because they'd feel like at some point too they'd get a return on their investment. They're an investment company. I mean, that I think that's become clear with Wolves' ownership is, um, it's not like Man City or some of the other ones where they're almost like a plaything for some of these billionaires. Um, Ours are very much,
Whoa.
it's a business, and they're trying to expand the brand past the club. Like I mentioned, the music thing, they've created Wolves esports and Wolves records and stuff like that. And at times we get a little concerned that the brand is more their priority than the actual club itself. And for the record, that was not a shot at you guys. I just want to make that clear. Look, if you look at
said to people like Man City.
yeah, well, I mean, if you look at it, a lot of the bigger clubs honestly don't make money. They lose money on a regular basis, but their owners can afford it, and it's because they enjoy it. I think that's why the
Well,
Chelsea
are
sale was
the
so
city
interesting, because that was the Russians. They were his plaything, and I'll be curious to see if that's similar with the new owners as well, with them being American.
he puts a lot of money into the Dodgers, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to put a lot of money into Chelsea because he puts a lot of money into the
Correct.
Dodgers.
And there's a lot of minority owners with the Dodgers as well, which help fund those.
Wow, I was just so thrown off by
I
that
know I gave you a
statement.
lot to unpack there.
Wow,
Sorry about that.
it's no, it's I know it comes every episode, and every episode I act increasingly shocked. So it's going to be fun to see how I act by the 10th episode of
And
this.
there's no shame in what Manchester City does. I mean, if you can afford it,
Oh,
we every fan wishes that their club could do that, could reach out. And I mean, like I mean, they had £100 million to buy Jack Grealish, and he's on the bench. Like, every Wolves would take that. What, we're spending that if they could consistently keep doing that, and not spend £35 million on a Fabio Silva and then go, we're broke, we can't do anymore. So I mean, it's a cool time to be a fan of those bigger squads because it's almost like fantasy football at times. You guys can go, I'd like this guy and this guy and this guy regardless of price. Whereas for us, we're like, well, he's too expensive. It's not going to happen.
I feel like you start off by being like, "Hey, I don't mean it," and then you just like punch me in the face again.
It's just it's a different
Oh,
world. I mean, there's a reason we call them the Big Six because you guys have the more money, but it's not the fans' fault. I mean, it's just ownership can afford to do that, and if your owners can afford to do that, that's awesome. Everybody wishes,
and we can afford, hey, we can afford to do that now. 10 years ago, we were
exactly.
selling, buying guys for 10, 20, $30 million as we have
Hmm.
grown. And City also, it's an investment group. They are up to their eighth football, sixth, seventh football team around the world that they own. So I mean, they got the whole like investing thing going on also. So I just wanted to like meet in the middle
Right.
and shake hands and say, stop punching
Yeah.
me.
Well, and it's not like you guys just take the best player all the time and buy him. Like Haaland, for the price you got him, that's a steal. You got Ruben Diaz at a great price. Yeah, we were begging our owners to buy Ruben Diaz, and they could have like 2 years earlier for half the price you guys got him at, but that was still good business. You guys didn't, you know, outbid people. You just were smart about who you were spending the money on. I feel like Man United is the one that's just like, we're gonna spend it on everybody, and they almost don't have a strategy. I do feel like Man City has a strategy at least.
And they do.
Is that
And
good? Does that make
I
you feel a little
am
better?
just I that was great. That was I'm gonna move on. I just yeah. I just like I'm a very big fan of the dramatics, so don't like actually think that
Hmm.
I am hurt because that is like the easiest. Well, and it makes sense. We are assholes. I say in the podcast, just embrace the evil empire that we are now. Like it just is the story. It is what it
It's
is.
like
Like if
being
you want
it's
people to like be
yeah,
nice,
it's
get over
I
it.
mean, it's the
Like it's
Yankees or
not
the
gonna happen.
Dodgers in baseball. I mean, there's a ton of fans there, and ultimately, you still have to make good decisions and spend the money smartly. If you're spending the money stupidly, you're going to end up like Barca, who doesn't win La Liga, and they're broke.
And what it really is, it's like growing up, I hated United for being like the Yankees and being like the big guys. And I think that's kind of like the mind warp that City fans have, where we're like, no, we're like small, local, we love,
Mhm.
community. And people are just like, no, guys, like, no, wake up. And I think that's kind of what the fan base needs to realize. No, guys, like, we're those assholes. Like, just it's okay. Like it's okay. Back to the season. What was your favorite moment of the season? And then follow that with the most hated moment of the season because I feel like I've been talking a lot. So yeah.
Paul?
I will go to a victory if West Brom are our main rivals, then the second rivals geographically are Aston Villa. So it was the away fixture against Villa. We were 2-0 down, looked to be dead and buried. And I think with something like 11 minutes to go, we turned it around, got an equaliser pretty much last minute, and then went into stoppage time. Guess what? A Traore run, drew the foul. Ruben Neves steps up. We expected him to bend it into the top corner with this wonderful free kick. But no, hit the wall, sent the keeper the wrong way, and trickled into the net for a 3-2 win against Villa. So I'm taking that one.
Yeah, absolutely. That was the best game of the year. Uh, Everybody thinks I'm crazy. I still say Ruben Neves purposely kicked it in the wall to deflect it in, which I know is definitely crazy. As far as worst games, boy, you could pick out a lot there late in the game. I mean, obviously that Man City loss was tough. I'm actually gonna. I think I'm gonna say the FA Cup losing to Norwich 1-0 was really rough because we thought we had a chance in that we'd throw everything at trying to win the FA Cup this year, and that was a frustrating game because Norwich had been playing horrible and giving up so many goals, and for us to lose 1-0 to them, especially because we were at home, that was tough to watch. What was your least favorite, Paul?
I think hated moment has got to be that VAR call at the Emirates with Moutinho because, and it's not just necessarily that particular game. It just seems that we're always on the wrong end of those, and I think there was some stats that came out at the end of the season that we've got the net worst points lost based on VAR decisions ever since it's been implemented. So it's not just being bitter about it, that it's starting to show some pattern or something here, that it's coming to these contentious calls, whether it's the ref on the field or his buddy watching on the screen, there's something not quite right. And that was just another example at the Emirates of being on the wrong end of one. So yeah, that was one of many hated for me when it comes to VAR and the technology that we've got in place at the moment.
And here's those stats
Um,
Paul's talking about over 3 seasons with net score. Brighton is number one at +11, then Southampton at +6, Crystal Palace +5. You guys from Man City are +4. The bottom three are Leicester at -3, Arsenal at -4, and Wolves at -10. -10.
that's
it's
wild.
it's
And especially that Brighton would be plus 11.
Yeah,
That's
that one
very
is
interesting.
surprising, but when people complain about VAR, it's like we've lost 10 goals, a 10 because of VAR in 3 seasons. I mean, and some of those have been game changers that cost us points. The Man City being one. I mean, we should have gotten a point from that game.
The VAR that you were talking about, Paul, was that before or after the Rodri shoulder ball?
So
Do you know?
I think it would have been after that. I think you're right in that,
Yeah, because
one wasn't given and then the other one was. Again, it's just all we're asking for is just some consistency. So it
oh no, I wasn't even pointing that out because I feel like you even had one match where there were a couple of VAR looks and they were incredibly inconsistent, and it could have been the City match. I don't know, but you guys do seem like hard off on VAR calls, and I feel like once upon a time City had that problem, and then we still kind of do if Raheem Sterling is the one on. It's kind of weird, and I really hope that they are working on that behind the scenes. This whole like VAR fiasco, but what I loathe Villa like between how they reacted after City acquired Grealish, and then on the final match them in media being like, Liverpool, we got you. Like the second you like partner up with Liverpool, you're dead to me. And so
That's awesome.
it's just ugh. You guys basically said how you felt about the season. They achieved is basically where you expected. So we can move on to transfer moves that you're expecting or hopeful for, or that you would love for them to make.
it's going to be Game of Thrones, and we're all at the beck and mercy of George Mendes and his clients. So really, Neves is that big chip that if he goes, there's going to be a domino effect. So
So what is Nevid's what are you guys valuing him for?
I mean, ideally, I think they valued him at 80 million pounds, which we feel is fair. I don't know. I don't know if the market's going to see it the same way. Just because he's so valuable to Wolves, but is he going to come into a bigger side and be considered that valuable as a piece? So we'd like 80. I could see it being closer to 55 or 60, honestly.
yeah,
80 is a good number, though.
Yeah,
Sorry, Paul.
potentially all in if you're talking total value. But again, with all these moving pieces, I wouldn't be surprised if it's around the 40, 45 mark with a player coming the opposite direction involved.
Oh, like someone could throw in a player and money, or you think that they'll just take less money for the sake of getting things moving along?
I think there's too much riding on it really that he's our most valuable chip in all of this, so they really have got to extract the maximum value from him, even if it's total cash amount or still a favourable cash amount that allows them to do what they want with potential replacements and strengthening other aspects of the team. I think that even if it's less, that'd still need a player as a make rate to get up to that total value that he's valued at.
And I think there's a lot of the fan base now that is kind of warming up to the idea of Barcelona getting him. Now Barcelona's trying to act completely broke and saying, "Oh, well here, take these three players who Wolves don't have a desire for." I do feel like there are a lot of fans that are well versed in more than just the EPL who would be pretty happy getting Nico Gonzalez in like 35, 40 million pounds, um, because he's kind of viewed very favorably throughout. And then they'd have the money to still get Paulina as the direct replacement for Neves, which it's going to happen. It's been ready to happen for 3 years. And then you have another 20 million to play with, and hopefully they spend it wisely. But as far as any other moves, I don't know. I keep banging the drum at the fact that Wolves understand marketing really well. I mean, there's a reason Raul Jimenez, I think, is just he's going to be there as long as he wants because he's so important to their growth globally because he's Mexican. I mean, there are so many Wolves fans that are Mexican, and it's strictly because of Raul Jimenez. And then same with Huang He Chan. I know there's a lot of fans that are upset at the price he paid, but he's very popular in South Korea, and so he's going to make that money back just in off sales. So I keep saying they've got to get a Team USA guy in, and it's got to be before the World Cup, and it can't just be one of the bench guys. It's got to be one of the impact ones. I mean, you see Leeds is spending a lot of money to get Brendan Aronson. Chelsea, there's no way they're going to let Pulisic go unless it's a huge amount. You're starting to see a lot of the younger guys for Team USA going. There's a lot of clubs that are realizing the value in how USA soccer is growing. And if Wolves have a good performance in the World Cup, especially since they're playing England, that could really help marketing wise. So my dream one has been either Weston McKennie, which I don't think is going to happen, or Gio Reyna. And Gio Reyna would cost more than Wolves have ever spent, but I do feel like if Wolves want to become a big player in the US market, that's somebody you have to spend, 40, 45 million pounds on. And it would be worth it.
And he would be
Yeah, it
worth
would be
it.
worth it.
Yeah, he would be worth it big
Mm-hmm.
time, big time. He's solid. I rate him highly, and I could see him playing in the Wolves system, like very much
Yeah,
so,
Gio
and
Reyna's
fitting in comfortably.
if you look at Team USA, Pulisic's obviously, the best scorer. I feel like Weston
Overrated.
I feel like Weston McKennie is the best overall player. Gio Reyna has the most talent of anybody on Team USA. It's just injuries have been the only thing holding him back. Now, is Dortmund going to be willing to sell him after losing Haaland? That that's the question. I don't know, but we shall see. Money talks, man. Money talks.
All right, expectations for next season. Where do you see them placing? If everything goes well, they sell Ruben for 65 million, and then they're able to make the proper moves, get the right guys. You don't even have to like think of names, but just they get the right positions covered. And best case scenario, where do
Glass
Wolves
half
land?
full, if all of that panned out the way that everyone wants it to, would want that progression from 8th to 7th or 6th and really challenging for the Conference League or Europa again. That's going to be extremely difficult just based on the competition, in that Newcastle will have the checkbook out again. So you're going to have another contender for those mid-table spots who want to challenge in. So that would be glass half full thinking. But me personally, in my tainted past, just get me to those 40 points, baby, and then we'll see what happens.
It's really going to depend on if they make the moves to create the offensive system that Lodge wants. If they do that, absolutely, talent wise, they have enough talent to finish sixth. Sneak in, because it always seems like there's going to be one of the big six which is in turmoil. I mean, it was even happening this year. It was just that West Ham and a few of the others, when we'd have it, or us, when we had that chance to break through, we could never get the results. Paul's right about Newcastle. That's obviously going to throw a major wrench, just because of the amount of money they're going to be able to spend, and West Ham too. I think West Ham's going to spend, and obviously, the big six will have money. So I think ideally we would be able to field a squad that we could comfortably say we should or could finish sixth.
But you are right. That whole traffic congestion of you guys, West Ham, Leicester, Newcastle, Brighton, Crystal Palace, Villa. That's going to be like really intense next season, and it's going to give a lot of people in the top six fits. I'm really looking forward to next season. I think it's going to be pretty competitive. I think we're seeing years into all the money from the broadcasting coming in to the teams. I know it's hits teams like City and United and stuff quicker because they get most of that deal. But like teams like you guys, you're now able to kind of like see some things. So you might be able to spend a little bit more money instead of sitting back and just waiting. And I'm looking forward to
See,
it.
and you said you expected
What
a
I
really competitive one. To me, um, Man City's going to run away with it, and honestly, they're going to challenge, I think, for the most points ever. Um, I mean, you guys won the league without a number 9, and now you have, honestly, somebody who could be the best number 9 in the world. I see Man City running away with it, and then everybody else kind of, competing for those Champion League spots amongst the next 5, and then I think the real battle is going to be like 6 through 9, 6 through 10. I think that's where the fun's going to be. And it's good for teams like us, West Ham, Leicester, Newcastle. We're all going to have a fun time. I think for you guys, the fun's going to be in, can we break the record for most points in a season and finally win Champions League? That should be you guys' 100. I mean, big goal going in: win Champions League and honestly win the quad. I think Man
yeah, that
City, if
I
anybody's
made
going to win the quad, I think they have the best chance next year.
Yeah, I made everyone do a hot take, and that was my hot take was the
Yeah,
quadruple, and
yeah, absolutely.
I could see happening, but also like I Pep tried a we call it the double pivot with just like two almost like defensive midfielders, and with Holland there, it has the chance of being terrifying, especially with De Bruyne doing his
Yeah,
runs that he's doing now, and I I am extremely hopeful and started being a City fan right right before they started really getting in the money and the growth, and I try to dive deep into the history so I know like things can go bad, and I talk up all this big shit about how we need to be like embrace the evil and we just need to be used to being those dudes now. But every now and then I'm still just like, what if we struggle? We did great this year, breaking through everything. We ran a lot of our players ragged. The reason why City are bringing in so many players this season is because we need to rest people. We have this insane World Cup in the winter, even though it's still going to be like 90 plus degrees.
Yeah,
And
thanks,
half these
FIFA.
players play in England where 70 degrees is hot for them. It's going to be very interesting. It's very, very interesting. What I wanted to say before we head out, or is there anything that I didn't ask about Wolverhampton fandom, or that you wanted to get out there or let people know?
No, I think you've allowed us a great platform to cover everything from history to the modern day, really. So thanks for the opportunity.
I think with
Yeah,
Wolves
for
fans,
sure.
it's really interesting because you have the Wolves fans in England who grew up in that area, and that's why they're really ingrained in fans. And I even see, when we're talking online or there was a meetup in Chicago, there's still a lot of English fans and even people with the club that are trying to wrap their heads around, wow, there are people in America that are rooting for us, that's their team, is this small town in the West Midlands. And Wolves are growing. If Wolves play this smart and can spend the money where they want, they can be that scrappy little underdog like a Leicester City was several years ago. And this is the time to do it because of how English soccer is so accessible to watch, and it's gaining in popularity quick. I love baseball. Baseball needs to watch itself. I still think soccer can overtake it in 2026, after the US World Cup. Not because they wouldn't be promoting MLS like they did back in the mid 90s for, hey, you love soccer, come to here. It would be, hey, you can watch all of the games overseas now with a ton of streaming platforms. So Wolves are in a prime opportunity to really draw in these new fans, um, and ones that love scrappy underdogs and are masochists like me.
And then Josh and I were talking about it pre-pod, but Paul, I am going to the City Club America Houston match, and so I will be in Houston in July. I will be there from the 9th, 18th to the 21st, 19th to the 21st, something like that. I'll confirm with you guys, but I'd love to meet up
Yeah,
with you
sure. If the
guys.
stars align, that'd be awesome.
I'll be around. I'm just there to have fun. The game is on the 20th, and which is my birthday. So we're got an Airbnb, and it's 3 minutes from the stadium. But like the day before and the day after, I'm just looking to check Houston out, see some things,
Yeah,
eat some
Now,
food,
where are you?
drink some
bring your
drinks, and
sweatpants for all the barbecue.
Now,
totally.
where are you based out of?
I live in Southeast Iowa.
Okay, so it's going to be slightly different weather than you're used to.
Oh, I grew up in
Oh, okay.
Arkansas.
Yeah. It's just a little hotter,
Yeah,
but
so
same
yeah, no, I'm
humidity.
fine. Yeah. I'm gonna be very. I'm dressed. I will be dressed for that weather, which is light, thin clothing. Like there will be skin showing. Like it's hot boy summer. Like I've been saying on the podcast, thighs out, men. Let these thighs out. It doesn't matter our size. These thighs need to breathe. Like we have been shunned for far too long. Let our thighs breathe. The sun deserves to see them. We deserve to let them breathe. Like
we're supposed
judgment free
to
zones
we're
always.
supposed to have 109 heat index this weekend already. Early June. It's gonna be rough. It's gonna be rough this summer.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Thanks for having. Thanks for coming on. If you guys want to plug the podcast and how people can listen to the podcast and follow you guys on
Sure,
social
we
media.
are Whole Lot of Wolves, which is found on all the popular podcast platforms, typically WLW Pod on the socials, mainly Twitter. But we operate through the season and we have guest spots on for our opponents as well. So we'd love to repay the favour and bring you back on when it's games against the sides as well. That always comes across as good content. So yeah, we'll look forward to connecting again.
Anytime. You know the vibes. Shady gang, shady gang, shady gang.